Welcome to our Fiqh evening class. Continuing with the left last week, we were speaking a lot about the persecution that the Muslims were under from Quraysh and the challenges and the torture and the abuse that Quraysh were putting the Muslims through. And we looked at some of the key characters and key players during that time of this war against the Muslims, if you want to call it that. And we looked at and mentioned some Sahaba like Sumayya was the first woman and the first martyr of Islam, and Bilal was also one of those who was severely tortured by the Quraysh. So following through in that period of time, right after the Prophet began giving this public da'wah, after the Prophet was inviting people to Islam publicly, right? That all happened. This torture, this persecution, this harassment against the Muslims happened over a period of 10 years, right? The first 13 years the Prophet was in Mecca and the last 10 years in Medina. Of the 13 years in Mecca, the first 3 was a private da'wah and the last 10 was public. So all of this persecution was happening in these 10 years of public da'wah, right? So all the things that Quraysh decided to do to, to hold back the Muslims, to let the Muslims was, they implemented an economic blockade and a social boycott. Essentially, that meant that the Quraysh targeted 2 times, Quraysh and Banu Muttalib. So these 2 tribes, Quraysh and Banu Muttalib, were the tribes of the Nabi Muhammad and among them Muslims and non-Muslims, but both tribes were targeted from Quraysh. So both of these tribes were not helped with economically, so no trade was done amongst them or with them at all. Either they would sell them the goods or would buy the goods, or they would buy from them dirt cheap or triple or quadruple price that they would sell it to them. The social boycott as well was any marriages or relationships that they had with Muslims. And when these tribes were ended, immediately, and we can look at it again, daughters who were divorced by their husband and still were Muslim, or divorced by the sons of the other husband, right? That's one example. But the sons and daughters of these 2 clans, of these 2 tribes, were prevented from marrying others outside of the tribe. Complete interaction was cut off. Any social interaction, complete stop. And all of this whole economic, this social blockade, right, started more or less in the 7th year of this public da'wah. And this went on for approximately 2 years. So this boycott, this economic blockade, this siege that the Quraysh were putting the Muslims against lasted for around 3 years. 3 years of serious fighting against the Muslims. 3 years of fighting to survive. 3 years of scrambling to get food and drink. To the extent that when they ran out of their own provisions and sustenance, they were eating what they were feeding camels and they were eating leaves of trees. Very much similar to what we find now happening in Palestine. But not only that, Abu Talib was the leader of these tribes, decided that it would be best for everyone's sake that they left Makkah and went to a place just outside of Makkah called Sheikh Raihan. Right? So the tribes Banu Abu Talib and Banu Hashim. Abu Talib was the leader of the both and decided to move their tribes on the outskirts of Makkah in a valley called Sheikh Abu Talib. And these tribes, as we said, had Muslims and non-Muslims. They were all together in that valley. The only person that was exempted or excluded was Mullah, the uncle of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. But the impact of this boycott was such a long period of time, as we said, was that they were eating what they were finding in the wilderness, eating of trees, the leaves of trees, and they would tie rocks to their stomachs so they would go hungry. And you can imagine 3 years of malnourishment won't lead to 6, won't lead to them being physically weak, the bodies being weak. Right? So that continued for long enough. Towards the end of the boycott, we will also see that some of the non-Muslims that were in Baghdad were thinking also that this boycott against the Muslims was unjust. And they were starting to put pressure against pressure. Right? Some of the non-Muslims in Baghdad were wanting to end this boycott against the Muslims, but it was not only against the Muslims, it was against the tribe of Muslim and Hashim. Right? So, one thing led to another, and then there was an uprising against the Kurdish leaders, and some prominent leaders of other tribes were standing up for Muslims, standing up for Banu Hashim and Muttalib, saying that this thing has to stop. Right? That this blockade against a fellow tribe and against the clans has to come to an end. Right? And we might ask the question, why were they doing this? Why were these clans of non-Muslims wanting to put an end to this boycott that was negatively affecting and causing serious damage and harm to Muslims? Why? Always going to say that it was for them to allow to continue their idol worship, right? But it was one of their designs. And the second one was to protect the clansmen, to protect the cousins, the tribesmen. We're not discussing what was right or what was wrong, but to protect them from attack by outsiders. And this feeling that they had, we can argue that it was totally natural for them to do so. Because as it was custom, as it was normal for Arab society at the time, was this very idea of your tribe being sacred, your tribe having value, your clan being worshipful, right? So it was this tribal fanaticism, you could say, led them and pushed them to wanting to protect Banu Hashim and Muslims, because they were cousins, right? So it was nothing more than a matter of clans solidarity that pushed them to want to protect Banu Hashim and Muslims. Right? And during this time, one major event that often gets spoken about is the delegation of Muslims that had immigrated to Abyssinia. The Muslims that had immigrated to Abyssinia. This was the first hijrah of Muslims. Right? Because the Prophet saw that the conditions under which they were living was doing a lot more harm. And he feared, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, that those harm would push the Muslims to leaving Islam. Because the conditions were that bad. Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam feared that some of them would lose their iman. Because what Quraysh was doing was seriously unbelievable and outrightly unjust. So a delegation was sent of about 80 to Abyssinia. And as we might know, the king at the time of Abyssinia, his name was Najashi, or in English maybe Negus. Right? He was the king, the Christian king residing over Abyssinia at the time. And among the people that went in this delegation, we might know a few: Uthman ibn Affan, his wife Ruqayya, the daughter of Muhammad Sallallahu Abu Hurairah, his wife Zubayr, Al-Awwam, Mus'ab ibn Umayr, Abdurrahman ibn Awf. Just a few of the names mentioned. And maybe one of the ones is Ja'far ibn Abi Talib. Right? So Quraysh obviously found out that a group of like 80 Muslims went to Abyssinia seeking refuge, immigrated to Abyssinia, looking for protection and safe haven. So when Quraysh found out about this, that this is whole group of Arabs leaving, seeking safe haven, and potentially even holding themselves up in another land to, come back and attack them later. This is maybe what Quraysh was thinking. They sent two people to negotiate with Quraysh, to convince the emperor of Abyssinia. And the two people that they sent was Tulwa ibn Abi Rabi'ah and Amr ibn al-As. Amr ibn al-As was not yet Muslim. He did not yet accept Islam at this point in time. But then Quraysh sent these two, Abdullah and Amr ibn al-As. And they were gifts, and not only for the king, but also for his bishops and for his advisors, and for everyone else around. It was of some high rank. Right? They sent him with gifts in the hope that they could persuade and drive this king to let him, the Quraysh, take the Muslims back to Mecca, to hand him over. But when they spoke to the emperor, they spoke to the king, he did not immediately accept it. He said, if you come here to bribe me, to try to buy them more from me, to buy their protection away, then, it actually state the case. Then what is this religion that caused this group of almost 100 to leave their country, to leave their homeland, and has caused you to come back and try to fix them? What caused this group of, this group of people to come into my land for safe haven, protection, but at the same time don't accept my invitation? Remember, Najashi, the king of Abyssinia, was Christian. So the person who spoke to the king, the person who answered the question, who represented the Muslims at this point in time, as we know, was Ja'far ibn Abi Talib. And he said, and this is narrated in the Muslim, he said, okay, we were once a people living in ignorance, worshipping idols, eating the flesh of animals that had died without being slaughtered, committing acts of abomination, neglecting our family, treating our neighbors badly, allowing the staff of lies to oppress the weak. Thus we lived until God sent us a messenger from among ourselves, a man whose family of origin, honesty, integrity, and chastity were well known to us. And this is not the Muhammad is speaking about. That he called us to worship Allah alone, to do away with the stones and idols which we worship as our forefathers had done. He instructed us to be truthful in our words, fulfill our promises, and to respect our obligations and converse in the method of our nations. So we believe in him and place our trust in him. Obey the message which he had brought from Allah. As a consequence, this is how, after Ja'far is explaining, were doing before the Prophet came, and then what happened? Or the message that Muhammad okay? Now he's explaining the consequence of that message, the consequence that is Quraysh's actions against him. So as a consequence, our people, they loved us, tortured us, did everything in their power to make us turn away from our religion, and revert to the worship of idols. When they continue to oppress us, wrong us, and persecute us, we came to your way, choosing you above all others as the one on whom we can hope, protection, and be defeated, faith, defeat each other. So then King Najashi was not to this today, so this is what they have to say. And then they also present something from what, the revelation that this person you say Muhammad is God. So Ja'far recited from what is revealed of the Surah. When Abraham heard this recitation of Surah, he was crying his beard away. And then he turned to these two guys of Quraysh. He turned to he told them, you can take your things, you can take these gifts, and you can go. You can go back to Mecca. I'll never give these Muslims to you, they will be under my conviction. And I'll not allow you to go. And then, as in the last attempt, it's like some sort of effort to convince him, they said to him, the two representatives of Quraysh, let's do a king. They say offensive, these Muslims, they say offensive things about Jesus, about Isa, about your God. So why don't you send him back to us, not send him back to Makkah? Why don't you ask them what to say about Isa? So again, Ja'far answers the question of what the Muslims say about Isa. So Ja'far said, we say of him that we should do it all about Muhammad. That Isa was the servant of Allah and the fulfillment of the promise which he had conveyed unto Maryam, the best version of him. And the king of Abyssinia agreed. Like, this is exactly what we believe. And he also, and he picked up a stick and he said that the difference between Isa, the son of Maryam, and the truth is the measure of the stick. Basically saying, or showing that it's the truth. What they're saying is not a lie, it's not blasphemy, it's not insulting, it's not antagonizing, it's nothing, it's the truth. So these representatives from Quraysh, they went back to Makkah with all the gifts of everything, and essentially all disgraced. But after that, these Muslims that were in Abyssinia, for them to go back to Makkah would be extremely difficult, because now Makkah, all the Quraysh, they're still watching Muslims, keeping a close eye on them and what they're doing, wanting to cause as much harm as they can, especially to those that are inside and especially to those that are outside of Makkah. So anyone trying to come to Makkah has to go and see it, or has to have someone inside Makkah who will be ready to accept him and have him under their direction. Right? So we can imagine just how difficult it is, or it was for Muslims during the time of Muhammad during these 3 years. Right? From the beginning of the public da'wah, the Prophet was making nothing but aggression and hostility from Quraysh. Right? When he sent a party, a group of Muslims to leave to Abyssinia, hoping that they would find some sort of home and peace. Even so, the Muslims were still talking. To get in and out of Makkah, to move around Makkah as a Muslim was impossibly difficult. And we can relate that to what's happening now in Palestine. To get out of Palestine as a Palestinian, we don't even know. sight, without fear getting shocked, without the fear of being raised at any point in time. We can relate what's happening in Palestine now to what the Prophet ﷺ went through in Quraysh. But that's another discussion for another day, inshallah. But just to look now at this event of this first hijab of Muslims to Abyssinia, there are some principles that we can take on. Right? The first definite thing is that Deen, this religion of Islam, the firm establishment and belief in following of Islam and its foundations is the source of all Islam. Because once you have this belief, this and follow these principles, then you have a wall that is capable of protecting everything that you have the right to, whether it's power, land, liberty, community. Because of your deen, you have the right to protect these things. And the deen is there to protect these things for you as well. Right? So once we establish the deen, we have every right to protect our deen and liberty. That's the first thing. The second thing is looking at the nature of the message between Nabi Isa alayhi salam and the Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The relationship or the link between the message that these two prophets of brought is the same. Tawheed, la ilaha illallah, right? As first, as the only. That is from the time of Nabi Adam alayhi salam. Right until today. La ilaha illallah. The king of Abyssinia, the emperor, he was a follower of this religion of Isa alayhi salam. Right? So for him to hear what the Muslims have said and to be in agreement with it also shows that the tawheed between Christianity and what they believe, the Nasara they believe, the tawheed there and the tawheed of Islam is the same. Not talking about now after the Bible has been edited by the hands of man and Roman involved, etc., etc., etc. We're talking about the land of Isa, the message, what the Injil contained, the belief that Isa was the same as what the belief that Muhammad wrote. And we can see this in this interaction between Muslims and the king of the Muslims. And the third lesson is that from this interaction we can also see that it's possible for Muslims to accept protection from non-Muslims if it is necessary. Doesn't matter from who, but Muslims can accept, it's permissible for Muslims to accept protection from non-Muslims if it is necessary. Right? Like the Muslims that went to Abyssinia accepted the emperor's protection. Like Muhammad accepted the protection of his uncle, the father. Right? Obviously, this protection does not apply if it means that you would give up on the principles of Islam or give up on the foundation of all beliefs. Obviously, the protection does not apply if it is going to be harming the mission of Islam. So prohibition have to remain, of course. If it's going to be detrimental to Islam, then it's obviously well. Either way, it's still permissible for Muslims to accept the protection of Muslims if it is necessary. I think that so one thing that I would like to mention that Sheikh Raihan mentioned in his book, right, is, and he said, with regards to the first point that we mentioned, that religion, deen, adhering to it, and firm establishment of its foundations is the source of all sin. With regards to that point, he says you might encounter a people who have been stripped of all their material resources, including wealth and land or hope, due to their commitment to preserving sound government and building a healthy social system. However, before long, you will find that the defenders of this sound doctrine and healthy social system and morals to which it gives rise have gained the spoiled homeland and extorted wealth, and that their power has been restored many times over. Essentially, what he's saying is that you will find a people that will not give up on a deen, that will not give up on the principles that believe in, that will never give up on the land. Even after everything has been taken away from them, everything that they own, their land, their homes, their wealth, their children, their parents, their families, they won't give up on their deen, and they won't give up on rebuilding the society in a better manner. Even after they have nothing left, even after they have had the entire dunya taken away from them, they're still not going to give up. And eventually, after some time, we'll find that these people will gain so much more than what they had. These people end up having tenfold of what they started with. And we can look at, again, the Sahaba. For those 10 years that they were persecuted and oppressed, for those 10 years in which they suffered, look at what happened after the conquest of Makkah. Look at what happened during the time of Sayyidina Umar, years later. How Islam expanded beyond the borders of Saudi Arabia, how Islam spread to the Byzantine Empire and Persia, how the kings of these massive superpowers at the time were conquered by the men of the desert. But what led up to that was years of struggle, years of belief, years of strengthening that foundation that they had. And as such, the Sheikh Raihan puts it very beautifully. He says, Allah honored the Muslims with the resources of the entire world precisely because they had not been seeking them. Allah gave the Muslims the dunya because they were not seeking the dunya. Allah opened up every valley and every mountain for the Muslims because their goal was never the dunya, it was the akhirah. Right? And that is another point that we can take from the struggles that Muhammad and the Sahaba went through, especially during the speed time when the Quraysh just boycott against him, blockade against him, right? That even though Prophet was offered everything from Quraysh, even though the Quraysh tried to bribe and give and give him the entire Mecca to make him stop with Islam and giving da'wah. The Prophet denied, refused it. Right? Because Iman is worth more than what the dunya can contain. Islam and the rest of Tawheed has no value that the dunya can give. There's no worth that can be measured anyway. And the Prophet understood it, the Sahaba understood it as well, which is why they endured whatever they had to go through, which is why they endured whatever came their way. They were not doing it for the money. They were not doing it to save themselves from further harm, torture. They were doing it because La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah was worth more than that. Was worth more than their lives. So looking at the time that we are living in, would we be able to make similar sacrifices? It's a question that we need to ask ourselves. It's a question that we need to think about. Alhamdulillah, we're living in a country where freedom is everything. Measured too much, some would say. But we as Muslims do not feel any pressure to be Muslim or to not be Muslim. We as Muslims live very free in Islam. We don't know what it's like in this country, alhamdulillah, to feel hated for being Muslim, or to fear being Muslim. But one of our struggles, one of our challenges still, what are we doing as Muslims who enjoy this luxury? That what are we doing that's going to help us strengthen still our iman and strengthen still our Islam? Because we are blessed daily, not with physical influences, not being beaten to not be Muslim. There is a silent war against Islam. There are silent battles being fought in the daily, especially on social media. In the week, I came across a video of a man who left, of a man who accepted Christianity. Right? He was a Shia Muslim, but left Shia Islam for whatever reason, and he accepted Christianity. But those that were pushing this video and sharing it and commenting on it were not really Muslims fighting against it, or commenting against it, or correcting whatever messages in this video. Most of the people that were sharing it were non-Muslims. Most of the people that were showing interest in it were non-Muslims. So you might ask the question, what about the Muslims that are seeing it? The young Muslims, the young minds, how are they looking at such content, especially on social media? As parents, as leaders in the community, as leaders in our homes, as mothers, as fathers, what are we doing to strengthen ourselves, our families, our community against such ideas that will compromise one's iman? To what extent are we empowering and protecting ourselves and our families from that? Because it's very easy to get information and accept it if it's compelling enough, if it sounds nice enough, if it looks too good to be true. Especially nowadays. Because there's too much information made available nowadays. It's difficult to cross-reference, cross-check, because there's just so much to go through. There's so many essays and articles and books and videos and whatever else. There's so much information, so much content out there. It's challenging to go through all of it and to see who's right, who's wrong, who's right, who's wrong. That's the challenge that we are facing. In this free society, the challenge is not to be Muslim, the challenge is to stay Muslim. And alhamdulillah, the Muslim community is strong. And there are many Muslims that are born. Many being born into Islam. But how many of those that are born into Islam are standing up for Islam? Or learning about Islam? Or strengthening themselves in their need? So on the one hand, you have many born Muslims leaving Islam and many non-Muslims who were never Muslim before accepting Islam. It's like a total opposite. The Muslims, the people who are born into Islam are leaving, but the people who are born into Christianity, Judaism, are entering into Islam. So what's happening is it's crazy. It's also a sign of Qiyamah. But in our society, in our community, and Cape Town, we may not be aware of it because it's not happening at all. But we could be very well heading in that direction. And it's something that we need to be aware of, something to be conscious of, something that we need to not stop thinking of. Otherwise, we will be putting ourselves back and constantly trying to catch up. So, looking in conclusion at for the Muslims during the time of Muhammad Sahaba, looking at what they had gone through, how they had gone through with this sabr. It's important for us to know. Yes. But it's also important for us to recognize that nonetheless, the battle must still be fought, the war must still be won. Just how the time has changed, but we also need to strengthen ourselves. Looking also at the delegation that we sent to Masjid, looking at what we can learn from them. One thing that I think is important is not be afraid to be Muslim. And to know your deen well enough that you feel confident to speak about the non-Muslim. So don't be afraid to speak about the religion, to speak about Allah, to speak about Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. To know that you know enough that you can speak about it confidently, to educate yourself, to allow yourself, you can speak about it. To have that confidence and to give that out to anyone to come across Islam. To give the message of Islam confidently. You know that I'm going to pray what Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has made everything. That when anyone makes questions to Islam, you're able to answer them properly. Not give some flaky kind of man. Inshallah, mashallah, alhamdulillah. To give them a view of, to show them Islam. Because that's what Ja'far ibn Abi Talib for Islam. To keep and develop Islam. To show them what is Islam. To explain to them what is Islam. And we need, in our free society, where information and education is available, we should be able to do the same. So with that, inshallah, I'll just like to remind everyone that again next week, the Fiqh of the Gospel will continue, and we will be continuing from is the first delegation that came to the Nabi Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So Muslims went to Abyssinia to seek refuge, and after some time, some Christians from Abyssinia came to Makkah to meet the Nabi Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam because they were interested. So we're looking at that whole event. This first group of non-Arabs that have come to meet, come to find out more about Islam, find out from Abyssinia. This was in the 10th year, right? The 10th year after the revelation started. Right? And in this year, the wife of Muhammad, Khadija bint Khuwaylid, she passed away, and also the uncle of Muhammad, Abu Talib, he also passed away during this year. And also long after the Prophet was rejected by the Ta'if. So all these major events happened during this year, and we're going to look into that and discuss some of those things as well in the next class. So, what that being said, I would like to ask if there are any questions from the audience, and maybe those that are watching online or watch later. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments below, inshallah. But otherwise, shukran again for coming tonight. Shukran for your time and all throughout this gathering was beneficial to us, I think, and everyone was listening and understanding, and the ability to see our abilities that we have in us, and the ability to learn whatever we can, so that we can strengthen ourselves and strengthen our families. Whatever I have said that's wrong, as for myself and Shaitan, that I have said that's good, from Allah and Rasul Sallallahu Allah help us and help our brothers and sisters in Palestine. Allah grant the victory against the oppressors and grant us strength and be ready to help them as well. Help our brothers and sisters in Palestine. As the Prophet said in the Hadith, that the Ummah is like one body. If one part of the body feels pain, the rest of the body is going to feel it, and we feel for our brothers and our sisters in Palestine. Allah make it easy for us and for them, and